Hello and welcome to another episode of Invisible Walls. This week we are going to have a ton of people in here talking about a multitude of things, just trying to constantly, try new things, keep it up. Thanks for all your questions. I think that was last week's Comic-Con was already a week ago, huh?
Yeah,
God, it
Comic-Con
feels
was
like
last
years
weekend.
ago.
Yeah.
But, it was fun doing that on the Hook show. I thought that was a lot of fun. Today we are joined by Michael Damiani, who was at the Comic-Con.
Yes.
He met the Green Ranger.
Yes, we did meet the Green Ranger.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And then they had like the cast of the new one, which looked like they looked like teenagers. That was like depressing seeing them, and then Green Ranger next to them. I was like, jeez.
A little known fact, the Green Ranger almost made it onto our top 10 characters we wanted to see in Smash Brothers. And Marcus Beer, who has been, his face has been everywhere lately, despite
Really?
going on hiatus.
Well, yeah. I mean, Annoy Gamer's on a break, and just because I wanted to separate the seasons, so I did a year of Annoy Gamer, and now I'm taking a month off, and I want to improve the quality of Annoy Gamer. I just don't want to be that guy every week who just tries and scrabbles around for crap. But I do have a topic, so I'm going to.
Yeah. Do you have any vitriol and bile to spray on us today?
I have a little something. I'm not spraying on you. I told you that costs extra. So yeah, this week Microsoft and Microsoft are not the focus of my bitch and moan session. But Microsoft announced on Wednesday, after a story broke on Game Informer, that they are indeed allowing self-publishing on Xbox One, and it's going to cost like $100. And every Xbox One apparently is a dev unit, I'm hearing. You can actually develop your games, which taps into some of the things that they did show us, that game creation unit that they showed at E3. But of course, the press wanting to get reactions, they went to a couple of indie developers. In this case, Jonathan Blow and Phil Fish, because those guys are, the self-styled kings of the indie genre. They've been on Indie Game the Movie, and, they'll turn up and quote for anything and everyone. And Messrs. Fish and Blow, or Blowfish, as I'm going to call the two of them right now, because while they may be moderately tasty, they're also kind of lethal, decided to go bananas and bitch and moan to Game Informer in particular about, how dare you? How dare you ask us questions about this story? I'm sick of you guys wanting my opinion on this story. And both of them, both bitching away. And I've just got a little message for the Blowfish. Gents, you were the guys who did Indie Games the Movie. And some of you looked relatively normal in it. One of you looked like a total tosspot in it. But you can't have it both ways. You're successful game designers. You're indie game designers. Hurrah, good for you, you fucking hipsters. So let's get something out of the way. If you are successful and you want people to promote your games and you go to the press and give them quotes for anything that pertains to your shilling your next title, when the press then come to you and say, oh, this is something that's pertinent to the indie scene, let's talk to Blowfish, because Blowfish are successful and they are, supposedly these pioneers. Don't get fucking snicky about it, all right? Jesus, you should be grateful that these guys still consider what you say something of use. Me, I think that both of you are a pair of tosspots. You may make good games. Well, Blow makes, Braid's a good game. Fez, I'm just not into at all.
Hey,
but I'm sorry, I'm not into it. I respect people that do. I mean, okay. my own personal opinion, though, having seen these wankers over and over again, bitch and moan, Phil Fish in particular, he
does come across as whiny.
He's a fucking asshole most of the time, and that's the thing. I'm an asshole, but that's what I am. That's what I do. I suck it up and suck up my but that's what I am. But what I'm saying is, if you guys want the promotion, and then the next time round on Fez 2, or what's the follow up to Braid, the Witless.
Oh, jokes.
Whoa, thank you very much. Yeah, so come on, Fez. And actually, I would like to say to every outlet who got dismissed by Blowfish, fuck them. Next time they have something to shill, say, yeah, not so much interested. It is a two-way street. It's a symbiotic relationship. You guys are out there. You have to suck it up.
Well, I would like a small counter argument. I do think indie devs are still trying to figure out this space. I know when we had Brandon Chung on years ago, he was like PR was the thing, just getting messaging, getting stuff out there. These are really small teams sometimes.
But Fish.
Yeah. Oh no, these guys have had way more exposure. I also don't think Jonathan Blow is quite a hipster. He looks more like a professor who doesn't have tenure. But
All right, well, I will redact his
I will say
his
just
hipster
kind
card
of
then.
the whole thing that's set this off, the indie games on Xbox. It really does look like there's almost a indie game Cold War brewing between the Xbox and the PlayStation 4, which is awesome. But like, I don't know if you saw the guy who made Gunpoint, ex-Games journalist. He's quitting his day job because Gunpoint was so successful. I don't know if you guys bought anything during the Steam sale, but I got a Prison Architect, and I checked their page. They've already made $5 million. I mean, that's a bigger company, but they're still pretty small. They already made $5 million. Torchlight, again, not really an indie dev, but smaller team. They just said they hit 2 million copies of Torchlight 2.
Torchlight 2 is fantastic.
Yeah, so it's just it's interesting when you have these small teams that can generate like, you know, 2 or 3 people teams that can generate so many sales.
Yeah, I've got nothing against any indie developers. I mean, I am very much pro indie. Unfortunately, these two in particular have, you know, they're the ones who get the majority of the press pages. They get the majority of the attention, and you know, they've got to learn to take the rough with the smooth. And it's not even you know, rough in, oh, we're gonna give you verbal shit. No, it's a case of, you know, you are respected by a lot of people. You are you know, giants in the indie scene, and which also raises the question: when do you stop being indie? I mean,
well, the whole word's kind of stupid, but
yeah, when do you go from being
it used to be called
Luke Skywalker
shareware.
to being But I mean, you know, they have to suck it up. I mean, you know, there are a lot of people who would love to have the press call them and talk to them and ask for their opinion on something like this. And it's just the constant bitching from these two. I mean, you know, Fish in particular just gets on my nerves. But I mean, I accept and respect the fact that a lot of people like his game. Not my cup of tea.
Yeah, well, I also kind of like the idea of the asshole auteur, like, you know, the guy that you kind of hate but you love his work. Is always kind of interesting.
There's nothing wrong.
Well.
There's nothing wrong with being an asshole, but you know, you're, like I said, in a couple of months' time, or you know, a year, or whenever we get this next batch of stuff, these guys are going to be shilling like crazy to get the press coverage, and they've got to remember it's a two-way street.
Okay. Now, Mike, we sent you to Comic-Con and Beyond the Green Ranger. I didn't know you were down there too, Marcus. I don't know if you did any game stuff, but did anything kind of really jump out at you? I feel like the big news was probably Strider.
Strider was probably the biggest news that came out that I can recall. It was a pretty busy week, so trying to remember everything that happened. Let's see. I mean, okay, so technically Strider, if anyone really paid attention, Strider technically leaked a while ago.
Yeah, but a lot of people thought it was Strider HD.
Yes, they didn't know if it
mystery.
was a remake or a new game and whatever. Apparently, Capcom's not good at keeping secrets anymore.
Spelling.
Or spelling. Yes, that's true. But just a side note, like that kind of sucked what they did. They tried to like massage it a bit when we talked with them about their panel. They had a panel called The World of Capcom. They do it every year at Comic-Con. And in the description, at the very end, they said they had news regarding the future of Mega Man for the 25th anniversary. And everyone was excited. When you get there, there was no news, basically. And then they tried to say the news was the classic Game Boy games were coming to the 3DS eShop. And they said they announced that later because they didn't want to steal Strider's thunder from that announcement. And they said they tried to contact Comic-Con to update the schedule, but Comic-Con's so busy with stuff they just didn't update it, and it was a last-minute change. So whatever, that was a little bit disappointing. So once again, Mega Man kind of got the shaft. I think the other biggest thing that everyone was drawn to, just attendance-wise, was the Jackdaw the pirate ship.
Oh, the
Assassin's Creed pirate ship.
Saw it on the news, heard it on the radio. Ubi did look at that. Ubi did a good job. I mean, they
did.
They grabbed the attention of
everybody,
like the general press, the Comic-Con press, and the gaming press. Like everyone's eyes were on that pirate ship.
Yeah,
you guys were on it? Or?
Yeah. I got on the Saturday.
Yes, they did.
They had a weapons demo, and I mean, it was there. I mean, it was a fully PR and marketing stunt. I mean, they did have the single player demo from E3 that people could go and see, which we'd already seen, and then they had multiplayer. They did have a multiplayer play session, which the public got to go and mess around with. The multiplayer looks, again, it's never my cup of tea, but the fact that you can create your own multiplayer modes, and they have these one-shot modes, and you're only allowed to use a pistol or
what
a knife
were they
or whatever.
demoing it on?
They were running them all on PCs.
Yeah.
With what controllers?
The PS4 controllers, but
that's interesting.
They were running on PCs to PlayStation 4 specs, not on an emulator.
Same thing they were doing at like E3.
Yeah. I mean, I was on the show floor very, very briefly, only on Wednesday for preview night. But it was cool. Like, this is the public's real first chance to get their hands on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One.
Yeah.
And there was huge lines within seconds when those doors opened of people, wanting to play Rise, wanting to play Killer Instinct, wanting to play Octodad.
Yeah.
Well, when I was there on Saturday, actually, I mean, the booths were nowhere near as busy. I mean,
Oh, really?
It was
At the gaming club?
it was Saturday morning, so
Okay.
but they were they were ticking over, but they weren't like lines 20, 30 people deep. In fact, the longest line I saw was for a signing for 2 movies that they've got coming to Crackle on Xbox, which is Crackle's,
Sony thing, yeah.
A Sony thing, yeah. They got the Cleaner and they've got
Conglomerates.
Extraction. And Sean Astin was there.
Hey,
signing.
did you end up getting to see the new Castlevania Lords of Shadow stuff? Or no?
No, that was after we had the Robert Carlyle interview,
Mm-hmm.
and then afterwards they were going to do a media roundtable with Robert Carlyle. Sorry, I liked him in Stargate Universe. Sad that show got canceled. But then they were gonna show us, but that was gonna take like over an hour to get to that.
Okay.
So it's something else. But what was I gonna say? Like we were mentioning Xbox One, PS4 hands-on. We got to see the Xbox One games demoed early on the first day. The first appointment we had was with Rise, and Crytek was in full-blown damage control mode. They wanted to clarify everything. They were saying that the E3 demo was something they had to rush to put together.
So it's not a quick time fest.
They were just like, this is something we had to put together just to show the game. This is not reflective of the final game. Like they were like, we really want to work with you to like get the message out there that that's not the game.
That's interesting.
And they were really trying to harp on that people need to wait till game. They kept saying Gamescom. We have something we're going to show you. It's going to blow you away.
It's multiplayer.
And then they
right?
said they're multiplayer. We got something we're doing with multiplayer that is going to knock your socks off. And I was just like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. But I do sympathize a bit. I can understand that sometimes you have to rush to put together a demo. But you should also be aware that that's what you're putting out there. And if it looks like a quick time push X to win, that's what
People are
the
gonna report
the average consumer is not going to be able to. That's what they're going to see. That's what they're going to think. So that was on them. That's not journalism.
Did you get to play Rise?
I didn't actually get to play it. They did have it playable for everyone.
Yeah, not to dredge it back, but everyone was making fun of Rise, and then Justin, who hates everything, got his hands on, and he's like, "This is pretty good, actually." I mean, obviously the QuickTime thing is still a little wishy-washy. I hope they don't go mythical. I hope they keep it all kind of realistic, like steeped in like Roman stuff, and that doesn't go.
Sounds like
mythology.
I think they're gonna stick with the more realistic depiction because some people are asking about like trying to go to the God of War route, like you could do this, and they're like, no, I don't think we're gonna be doing this. This is more based on somewhat historically accurate or whatever stuff.
So I know a lot of the times this is chances for people to see stuff at E3 that the public can. Did you get to see anything else new? Was the Sonic demo new or anything like that?
Yes, they did.
Is that still looking
Did I ever
good?
go up on the site? They showed
It
us.
did, yeah.
They showed us the level that leaked through the screenshot, the Frozen Factory level. Still looks. I mean,
It looks like the best 3D Sonic ever, which isn't saying much.
I mean,
Sorry, I'm looking at the bar there, and it's right on the floor. So
Yeah, I mean, I had a soft spot for Sonic Adventure 1, but that had to do a lot more with the time that it came out, because like now I think it's easy to say that game's a little lackluster.
It plays well. I like how they changed it so Sonic doesn't run the whole time. You can walk around and have some exploration going on it, and whatever they owned up and decided to like borrow from other platforming games the better ideas from them and incorporate them into Sonic. So it's not just about blazing speed. They still have those levels, but they have those 3D open worlds where going really fast doesn't really work out, or at least they haven't figured out a good way to do it unless it's on rails. And so this is a better step for the series. I think people who haven't played it will probably find it more enjoyable because it's not just running around going fast and sometimes feeling like you have no control over Sonic. So, and there's a little bit more exploration, and it's gonna draw comparisons to Galaxy, so whatever.
And finally, my last question: did you get to meet the creator of Regular Show? Did that end up happening?
No, because they were doing autograph signings during our appointment,
And they didn't bring him over.
They were supposed to. It was supposed to be at
Regular
It
Show.
was supposed to be at the end of the appointment, and they had like two demo stations for Adventure Time, the new game, and then Regular Show game. And that took like 15 minutes. They're like, if you want to chill for about another hour, they have. I was like, not really.
Yeah.
So
Comic-Con, not for the press, for the people.
It's definitely geared towards the consumer.
That's
And
fine.
that's what it is. It's a giant consumer show. They want to sell stuff. They want you to see their products. They want to judge excitement. That's what it's become, and for better or worse, that's what it is.
I got no
But
problem with
yeah.
that.
And hey, and finally, they had Dark Souls on the floor. Anyone could go and try to,
Yeah.
to best the Mirror Knight.
That was good.
And some really bad footage leaked on the internet because that game's hard.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't let anyone post video, or they wouldn't let anyone record video. But
Well, just to
Does
wrap
that
on
ever work?
the Comic-Con section, we do have a new show on GameTrailers. The as yet unnamed pop culture
Could be
show.
named for the next one.
It could, well, yeah, we're still trying to scrabble around, and so basically this, the first one went up on Tuesday, and it's myself and Jeremy and John Santo, and we're going to be swapping out. Brandon's going to be joining us because he's a comic book nerd on a lot of things as well. So yeah, that's something that we're actually recording the next episode directly after this. It's going to be up on Mondays from now on, I think.
I'm not
I
sure
think.
about that exactly.
But
yeah.
check it out. It's more, it's kind of Invisible Walls, but talking about geeky stuff, and that's not games.
Google Glass.
No Google Glass. I've blocked Jeremy from wearing Google Glass. I've told him I would take my clothes off if he wears Google Glass.
Did you see that James Dean did the POV porno with the Google Glass? Google's not happy.
I read about it, but yeah.
The Comic-Con festivities continue with Brandon Jones. Your first Comic-Con,
My
As
very
brief
first
as it
Comic-Con
was,
ever.
but the
Yeah.
reason, the driving force that got you down there was Disney.
Yeah, I was invited by Disney to go there on Wednesday, and I went to their preview event for Infinity. Finally got to play the game. Actually got my hands on it, ran around the toy box, and
And you've done like a 180 on this game.
I do. Well, we had our
You were a hater.
we had our couple weeks of our memo features, and I wanted to do Disney because I wasn't really sure what they were up to. It seemed Disney Infinity seemed like a very Me Too project. It was like, well, Activision's doing it with Skylanders. They're making a ton of money. They have to invent all of these characters, where we have this huge library of characters that we can just make figures out of, make $1 billion off each figure, and it just seemed really easy and predictable. And the more excited I get about Infinity is the more things I discover that I can't remember another game that's done it.
And you were super excited. I don't know if
yeah.
if anyone watched your Wave 2 predictions.
Yes.
You labored long and hard on that, and detailed thoughts of what the next action figures would be.
What's funny, they're really trolling their fans because they show trailers that have all the characters running around that are obviously going to be figures because you're watching people control them in the game. So it's not like they built a figure it's not like they have Jack Skellington in the game just for laughs. Like there's a figure out there that they haven't announced.
Well, one of the things we keep coming back to is there's this argument like if we were 10, we'd really like Skylanders. I know, Mike, you reviewed some of the games, but as like adults, and I know there are some people who are totally into Skylanders that are adults, and that's cool. But I think generally these games seem maybe a little boring, little
Skylanders
not
gets boring
engaging,
fast.
not engaging. If you're used to other games. And I know I asked you is the game challenging? You're like, no, Infinity's not challenging. But what makes Infinity something that more than a Disney file may be interested in picking it up?
It's all about the toy box.
So what exactly is that though?
So it's just this free roaming sandbox mode that's just like Minecraft that you can just throw out any item that you've unlocked in the game, and then the play sets are kind of like Lego-ish single player experiences, and then you unlock all this stuff. So you get if you're playing Incredibles, you get all these city items, little pedestrians and cars and buildings and stuff. Then you can take all those tools in the toy box and you can just throw it out. It all plays with gravity. So if you're doing a multiplayer with friends and I have a little jetpack, when I turn my jetpack on, it'll knock you back. And
Can you actually build things though, or is it just like toys? So you can build a
actually
little
build
house
stuff.
and stuff like
Yep,
that.
and a lot of the way they did one of the most popular items would be the castle, Cinderella's castle, or the castles from the theme parks, and they have all those castles broken down into really tiny elements. So there's hallway castle, staircase, if there's little corners of a castle, there's 4 different sizes of it. So you don't just put the castle in, you can build your own castle, have a staircase going forever.
Is there any interaction between the items, or is it kind of all just geometry?
No, there's weapons you can do. There's a weapon.
Okay.
There's a weapon that shrinks things, a weapon that makes things bigger.
Okay.
You can recolor different stuff when you put it in. They have little cards that you can put in, and it'll theme the whole environment for on one thing. So
Is that
it'll
the
turn to all
physical
Finding
cards you were
Nemo.
talking about?
Yeah.
And your worry was the kids are going to lose those?
One of my big
discs?
worries. Yeah, one of my big worries that I discovered at Comic-Con was when you get the game, it comes with 3 play sets: Incredibles, Monsters Inc., and Monsters University, technically, and Pirates of the Caribbean. And the way you activate those are this weird little clear disc thing that represents those 3 combined playsets. And then they're going to release all these other playsets until infinity, pun intended, starting with Cars and the Lone Ranger, like the separate playsets you have to buy.
Lone Ranger, good.
So when you get the Cars playset, the actual playset is tied to a disc. It's not tied to one of the figures. It's tied to this little plastic, thin, easily losable like thing that once it's gone, it's gone. You got to buy that playset along with Lightning and the figures you already have. You got to rebuy it, to have this playset to unlock it. And you have to actually put that on the pad or whatever with your figures.
Now, Mike, as you were also there, as the guy who played Skylanders, is Infinity a step up, or is there something for more older players? Or is Brandon crazy?
No, Brandon's not crazy.
A little bit.
He had a really good time playing it, though.
Was it a big smile?
Yes, it was. It was a enlightening thing to see. I was like, maybe that was back in the day when Jones played games at GameTrailers.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. No, it does look like there's a more diverse set of activities to do in the game, not just in the toy box mode, but with the included playset adventure modes. The Pirates of the Caribbean set. The intended play thing looks like an adventure game with objectives and everything to tackle. I don't want to compare to it didn't visually looked more like Fable, but not mechanically, but similar to that visually. Skylanders, the problem I always had with it is it was that top down not loot driven game, almost like everyone comparing it to Diablo Light, and it just got really boring because you were just sitting there holding down a button, killing enemies, grabbing the jewels, and then moving on. And if you died, you just swapped out a new character, or you had to swap in a different element to handle a different situation. It just got very repetitive. At least with the Infinity sets, there seems to be a better range of things to do. Like Cars, you get to ride around and drive around. And I didn't see if it was actual racetracks or if it was more open world. It looked a little bit of both almost.
I think I think some of them. I think Pirates is a little more classic Lego hallway-ish, where you're unlocking ways to go.
Who'd you play as?
I just did the Pirates thing with the
Barbosa.
So you just
Was it Barbosa or was it Sparrow you played?
I think they had all 3.
Did they seem like they play differently, or is it like a Lego game where they all have one special move, or is it all kind of just a skin?
I think they have the same abilities. I think all the Pirates guys have their gun and their sword, but it's just they animate differently, they attack a little differently.
And I guess I know you did your Wave 2 things, but to wrap it up, everyone, or at least me, but I think I've seen a lot of this around. It's when are we going to see the 2D animated stuff? When are we going to see Mickey? And does that stuff? I mean, how much does that matter? But it seems like a no-brainer. It seems still a weird.
I remember when they
entry.
re-released Star Wars figures, and I was way into those in high school, and I had to buy all those figures. It's Luke and Leia and Han, those. We didn't get those for a while. We got all the weird, characters. They'll give you your C-3PO or something, to start out. But Leia, I remember was they had one per box every time I go to Toys R Us and be "Where's Leia? Come on!" Why wouldn't they give you Leia? It's because you clearly want that, right? So it's all about supply and demand.
You think the mouse will be represented though?
Sorcerer Mickey is one thing that's been rumored a lot. That maybe he'll pop up somewhere in the game, or that we'll get a figure for that. But I think I don't think they're gonna give up on Infinity before we see that stuff. Yeah. But it's like you were saying, we're gonna wait until the game starts to dip in popularity, and then they'll release the Marvel gates or release the Star Wars gates, and just all those characters will come flooding in.
So your hype confirmed?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I felt bad because I didn't want to invert the controls and mess it up for somebody else playing after me, but it was really tricky going through and controlling the game. But again, and I told this to them when I was at the event, it's all about the toy box. It's really fun to run in there and build stuff, and it's kind of like Little Big Planet, except not 2D, except you can run around and actually see the environment, fly around the environment, drive around the environment, roller coaster through the environment. It's fun.
You'll be able to collect puzzle pieces, venture through Find Me, and play the 4 new Street Pass games that launched in North America just last week.
Hi, I'm Ryan Stevens. I've just put on 50 pounds and grown some facial hair. Actually, Ryan stepped out because we have changed up again. Brandon's still here. Now we are joined by Alex the Intern. Is that your full name, Alex the Intern?
Yeah, my last name is Intern.
What is your last name?
My last name's Ike.
Ike?
Yes.
As in Eisenhower?
Yes.
Okay, Ike. As in South Park?
Yeah.
Awesome. Anyway, we're going to talk about the new Miiverse games because there was an update, and in their continuing quest, and this might be bizarre to you, but that I'm actually asking questions about a Nintendo 3DS thing. But yeah, new 3DS games for the Miiverse, and I've downloaded them. I only got to play some of them today because it's the first time I've been anywhere near anybody else with the 3DS. I only get my street passes when I come into GT. But let's talk about them. Brandon, four games. Four games for $15. I mean, basically, you can there's a bundle offer. What's your favorite so far?
My favorite is probably Warrior's Way, just because it's a great game that you can play. There's a lot to do while you're actually in the game, but it's one of the few games that you can play really short. You know, if you want to just jump in, because the big thing with 3DS games is, what do I do before I accept another wave of people coming in? So if you're at, like, we go to cons a lot, and it's just like 10 people, 10 people, 10 people, and so it's like, okay, do I want to meet more 10 people and add to my Street Pass list, or do I want to play some of these games? And Warrior's Way you can play, but if you want to just say hi to people and gather troops, which is kind of the function of the game, you can do that really quickly, and then go meet some more people at your gate.
The troop thing, I mean, I street passed 4 people here at GT. You, Hoff, I haven't street passed you yet. Bloodworth and Mike Damiani. I gotta say, Mike Damiani.
Yeah,
It's
don't
ter-
mess.
is a master.
It is
Don't mess.
terrifying.
He had like 3,000 soldiers that just added me right away. I mean, I cruised through my first battle just because of Damiani. But it is cool. You can you can select whether if you want a medieval castle, futuristic one. You can go with almost like samurai castle, I think, and then it's just it's a simple progression game. I mean, that's all these games. All these games have very simple mechanics, but you've got 4 different games for $15. I think Warrior's Way is probably the most popular one. How are you doing on it?
With Warrior's Way, or just in
With
general?
what Warrior's Way?
In Warrior's Way, I'm enjoying it. I feel like progression gets stunted a little bit depending on who you actually street pass. Because whenever I come here and I street pass everyone from here, it's always like I can't get because like part of the challenge in it is you battle the people that you street pass. But one of the main problems is when I street pass Damiani, I have 20,000 troops and he has 200,000 troops, and it's like there's just absolutely no way of beating him.
Yeah, so I'm guessing further down the road, that's when you start to battle the other players, because I mean, obviously, I've literally just won my first battle by overpowering the enemy. So how soon does it kick in?
Well, you can always fight them. I don't know what establishes a monarch. Like, how do you become a monarch? Is it a certain number of troops that you have, or I don't know what triggers that. But some people you meet, you just get their troops, and some people you meet are monarchs.
Yeah, it seems pretty random.
It invites you to attack them if you want to, and if you have, like, if I have 10,000 troops and somebody has 3,000, like, I'll just do that automatically. I don't even have to worry about what order I put my troops in. I just wipe the floor with them. But that doesn't come until later, and I actually didn't discover that you could attack people and you can get their troops that way. But I really enjoy it because everyone puts on their angry face, and I don't get to see that from my friends. It's fun to see, like, angry Bloodworth, like, what, you're gonna attack me? Like, it's fun.
Angry. I think my character's only got one facial expression and it's mildly pissed off. The next one is the Ghosty Huntery game that I've literally just fired up. I mean, I am literally just firing this up. And this one is more of a exploring, and I mean, you played this one?
Yeah,
Describe it.
This one's my personal favorite one, and what it is it's a RPG, but it has like really well established RPG elements added to it, as well as Tetris, where whatever color shirt they're wearing, you can pick a puzzle piece and then you like fit it in like Tetris onto your map, and that increases the size of the room. And then whenever the doors open, you could either have like treasure chests in there, an upgrade orb, another street pass person that can team up with you and fight, or it could be a ghost and you have to go into a battle.
I think out of all the games, it has the most elements. It's the most unique, and really built into the Street Pass functionality well. Like, there's so many different systems and so many different things you can do in that game. Very impressive.
The third game is the left to right side scrolling shooter.
Right.
Very simple, very straightforward. That one, I played, and I got to say, I just enjoyed that. I mean, using LNR to just rotate. My friends come in as pods with each of their own different specialities. I mean, they're very simple games, but I think when you bundle them all up for $15, I think getting them as a bundle is the best way to go on this one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nobody will ever play the flower game.
that
And yeah, and it's something I had a couple people ask me. They're like, I don't street pass a lot. Should I get these? And I was like, no, probably not, because if you don't have, unless you have a ton of play coins that you're just willing to, trying to get off your chest. But
Yeah, walk a lot.
You have to meet a lot of people. That's like the whole point of it.
the other thing about these Street Pass games is I feel like they kind of defeat the purpose of the Street Pass game, but like only certain games, like the Me Force one, which is the shoot 'em up game. Like it's a great game, but I feel like it just goes on way too long. Not just with the levels, but like the actual opening of that game is like this entire story and dialogue with the characters.
Nothing goes on longer than the flowers, man. The flower,
Oh my God.
the flower
The
thing
flower
is brutal.
game.
I haven't even
is
looked in.
brutal.
Look, I can't do Animal Crossing New Leaf and a flower game in the same month. I'm sorry. It's just.
You think it kind of
beyond
makes
me.
sense, you're like, okay, I'll have a garden, and then I'll, the more people I get, the quicker my plants grow, and like, oh, it makes sense. And then it's like how many different seeds that you have, and then you can go into town and like remodel your garden, and then you have to do this stuff. Like, it took me 8 different times going into the game where I finally got past the tutorial, and this like gardener
Yeah.
friend finally shut up, and I'm just like, all I want to do is just have people grow my plants. I don't care if the Eden just opened up at the local mall to sell more shelves for my pots.
Well,
I just unlocked that today, and it's like, why is there a mall with flowers everywhere? This is
It's
the
just too
most
much.
boring
All right.
mall I've ever been to.
Just to clarify, I've spent the last 3 months with my wife redoing our backyard. I'm
You'll love
not
it.
doing it in video game form. So, overall, I mean, if you're a regular Street Passer,
Yeah.
pretty good value. I mean,
Very
it
good
expands it. I mean, hopefully Nintendo are going to keep on coming with these, elevating the gameplay. The only 2 gripes I have with the Street Pass system, obviously I found this at Comic-Con last week, this whole block of 10 at a time. I wish they would expand it, that you could get more people in so you can unlock more pieces. And then the other thing is that if you have 30 or 40 people use Street Pass, they should give you a start really into some of these games. I mean, the Warrior's Way in particular, it's like, all right, I've gone through this, the demo and everything. I know I've got 30 people I've already Street Passed, and I've got to go find more people. And it can be rough. I mean, coming into GT is my only time. I mean, I'm taking this to QuakeCon next week. If you're going to be at QuakeCon, bring your 3DS. And I'm going to take it to PAX, where I expect to get lots of Street Passes, but I have to keep on opening it up and accepting 10 at a time. And it's counterproductive. It really is, especially for lazy people.
I wonder if Nintendo wants it in your hands. I wonder if that's why. They want you to keep pulling it out and having it in public so people can see it and be like, oh, what's that? Oh, that device looks neat. I want to buy one of those.
Yeah,
Whereas if you had 1,000 Street Passes and you just collected them, then you probably keep it in your pack the whole time. You'd never take it out.
But people
wouldn't
will
see
take it out on little breaks and accept stuff. And I mean, honestly, I'm not going to keep my 3DS in my hands because, I don't want somebody walking up and snatching it.
Right.
I mean, plus my hands are always full. Anyway, yes.
Next, I'd like to discuss more on Pikmin 3 for Wii U.
Hi, I'm back, and I am joined by Daniel Bloodworth
Hey.
and Rob Slusser, who I believe this is your first time,
First time on Invisible Walls. Yeah.
but you've been on some other things here.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have.
Awesome. And Rob, let's start it with you. This is kind of our mini preview section. You got to do some hands-on with Lost Planet 3, and I think you wanted to talk a lot about Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, well, the main character of Lost Planet 3 is a guy named Jim Payton, and he is a dead ringer for Nicolas Cage. And during every cutscene in the game, all I wanted to do was for him to pick up like a pair of goggles or a pair of glasses just so he could say some sort of ocular device. Sorry, that's the best Cage impersonation.
No,
I
that's
can
pretty
do.
good.
Are we going to see angry tweets like we saw with Last of Us about likenesses?
I have no clue what you're talking about. but
Remember, it was
that's
like Ellen Page was like actually got into that whole thing about Ellie looking like her.
cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
with
did
that
read
with
that,
the
yeah.
game. I thought you meant with that. Okay. I don't know. Nicolas Cage is a weirdo, and he takes a lot of bad scripts. Maybe he would do a video game. I don't know.
That would be awesome.
Maybe he already has, and we just don't know. Maybe he's like bartender number 3.
Had you played the past Lost Planet games?
No, this is my first time playing a Lost Planet game.
What do you think? I'm curious now because like when the first Lost Planet came out, it had a demo and it was like anyone could play this demo. It was awesome. It was one of the bring E3 home things that Xbox was doing, and the 3D grappling hook was so awesome back then. But we're talking like what 5 years ago, 6
No
years
way.
ago.
Yeah. 6
So
or 7.
I'm just
or
kind of
maybe
curious,
8.
like what's the general vibe as a Lost Planet virgin?
This one's a prequel. So even if you don't know anything about previous Lost Planet games, you're going to be okay just jumping right in. There are a couple of plot things where you're thinking, where you start to wonder a little bit, but really that's stuff that's going to be played out more towards the end. You kind of have faith that stuff's going to be addressed in this game. There's really no knowledge you have to bring in for this game.
Does like the grappling hook still seem cool?
Yeah, the grappling hook is great. You
10
still get
years
to
later?
use it. Yeah, it still works out just fine. The there's the normal combat. The mechs are a little bit different. In previous games there were
Yeah, I was
vital
wondering
suits.
if you got to get into that yet.
Yeah, the vital suits are different now. Instead of combat machines like tanks, they're more like industrial construction machines. And so you don't have any weapons on them. Instead, you're using like hand-to-hand combats and you're fighting people with like a drill and things like that. But you don't spend all that much time inside the vital suits. Most of the time, you're using them to get from point A to point B, and then you're hopping out and fighting on foot and exploring on foot.
Does it feel fun to kind of march through the snow in them though, or is it kind of just like a gimmicky thing?
So sometimes you feel cool, marching through the snow, and sometimes there are curtains of ice, and you get to smash through them and stuff like that. But sometimes you just feel like you're walking around, a snow planet, just to walk around a snow planet.
I was surprised that there's a lot of like side quest stuff.
Yeah,
It seems like there's a lot of optional things you can do in the game.
It's a mission-based structure. Jim Payton, the main character, he's on basically a mining base on this planet as a contractor. And so you have to take on the main missions, but there are also side missions that you can take on for extra money and weapons and stuff like that. And so you actually have a mission menu where you've got your main mission, and then you can pull up markers for all your secondary missions.
Do you still have to constantly monitor your body temperature?
No, that's gone away.
thank God.
Thermal energy is now essentially money.
Currency?
Yeah, and so you use that to buy stuff, and you can stay out of your rig, as they're called, your mech, for as
Right.
long as you want.
I gotta say, after I played the first game and I ended up being disappointed, especially after the demo. And then the second game I thought was kind of a travesty. I mean, I guess it was so co-op focused. And the third game I thought it's been demoing really poorly, but it sounds interesting. I mean, I may give it a second
I
look.
remember when I saw it last E3 or whatever, I thought it was, we had that whole situation where it was like, oh, Lost Planet looks more like Dead Space.
And Dead Space looks more like Lost
Yeah,
Planet.
and so I thought it was looking really good when I saw it, but I feel like it's one of those things that's like it should have been out, and then it should have been out, and then it should have been out, and so you get so tired of it that it almost doesn't even matter how good it is because it's not going to be great, right? So you're just kind of like, just put the game out already.
And speaking of putting games out already, this launch window for the Wii U, we are allowed to talk some brief preview notes about Pikmin 3, which is of course out in Japan, and I think by the time this is up, it will be out in Europe as well.
Yeah.
And I know you started to dig into it a little bit. Any first impressions?
First impressions, I will say right now, off the bat, you may have a avoidance of the Wii remote. Don't have that avoidance. The Wii remote is the way to play this game, because for whatever reason, even though you've got a right analog stick and a touchscreen there, they don't really use those if you're playing with the gamepad. So if you're with the gamepad, you're using the left thumbstick to both control your character and control your cursor. And in most situations, it's fine, but when you get into like a boss battle or something like that, it can get really confusing and frustrating. And it's just a lot nicer when you have the Wii remote because you have, your left hand is moving your character around, and then your right it actually has the pointer, and you can just really quickly point at what you want to aim at.
I hate to be so superficial, but like I feel like in a lot of ways, this is the first real first-party big 3D push.
It is
from them.
The game looks gorgeous.
Yeah,
I was
and,
playing 1080p on my monitor at home last night. I mean,
yeah, you have
really,
a better monitor at home, right?
Yeah, it's always the TVs here kind of stink, but
gotta get them upgraded.
But
Looks good.
It's one of those games, and I felt like a lot of the games at E3 were the same way. Where it's like, yeah, it's like maybe we use not next gen, but it's certainly a bit above what we've been getting.
According to Kyle Bossman, it's next gen.
Yeah, I actually agree with Kyle on that point. One other thing I think is really nice, and Nintendo seems to be able to do this really well, is like they put in these innovations that are so natural that you don't even realize that, like, oh yeah, this is actually like something new and something I couldn't do before. Like in terms of like having multiple leaders and just the way the strategy just kind of spiderwebs out of that, and it's like, okay, you group up your guys and then throw one leader over here and give them a group of Pikmin, and then have your other guy, just go on the touch screen and command him to go over here to do something else, and then work with your first group and take care of some tasks. and then and then switch back to the other guy, and so you're micromanaging a lot more at the same time. And then some of the other things like the new Pikmin abilities, like the rock Pikmin and the yellow Pikmin, like being so much more electricity focused.
Oh, good.
That stuff, like it all just kind of plays off each other. It's the same thing with those touchscreen commands, like I said. What's funny is that they have the little mini gamepad device in the game as well. So
Luigi liked to do that
I don't
too
think I'm gonna
with,
have to. I don't think I'm gonna have to shoot over my shoulder or anything.
It does really mirror what you're seeing. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna see a review next week, I believe.
Yeah, it's
God
looking
willing.
like probably Wednesday, Thursday at the latest.
Cool.
But I'm definitely liking it so far. And another thing I think is interesting is story-wise that like this is one of the few franchises where I think Nintendo is like actually, like they're putting more of an effort into story. Like it's not just like the same thing over and over again. It's like this is another group of people and they have another purpose for being here and they're discovering things on their own.
So you're actually enticed by the Pikmin story.
Yeah, I mean it's not like a deep plot or anything, but just like those characterizations. Like when you saw them in the demos, it's like, who are these random guys? I want Olimar. But already like in just the first few hours, like you're starting to get their personalities and their quirks and things like that.
Well, that's a good sign. And finally, I said there'd be a lot of people. We are joined by Rohan Rivas.
Hey. This is, sorry, I'm...
Awkward introductions.
No.
I'm good at them.
This, new IW. How long have you guys had that?
A couple
months.
Weeks.
You've had it for a while, yeah.
It's very flashy.
You don't watch every week?
No.
I like your honesty. This was kind of our makeshift Metroidvania week, which is a word I know Daniel does not enjoy. And it's funny because it kind of got. We already knew what our top 10 was going to be, and it was kind of. We saw like Strider and all the Strider news. Now, even though Mike is saying like that's all like smoke and mirrors, Strider is going to be a completely kind of linear experience, but I'm still not entirely sure. I think he may just be a little negative. But we kind of did the stuff with the best Castlevania games,
right.
The best Metroid games, and I have Rohan on because he says, and I quote, this is his favorite type of game.
Yeah, like the whole two-dimensional kind of backtracking. It's an open world game, kind of sorta. Like you have the freedom to go where you want to go. While you're constricted
the whole world is designed though. That's why I think like when you look at like a open world games, when we think of like a GTA or Infamous or something, there's a lot of filler out there. Whereas in a Metroidvania, it doesn't usually have filler.
Right,
Well, that's what's cool about
tight.
2D games, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
you can kind of know you can get the places while, unless like with these new superhero things and the aerial things, you can kind of go places, but buildings are just kind of there to take up space and make things not be so samey in like a 3D game, so to speak. But I think one of you guys said they're very designed. Did you say that? It's funny. Marco pulled up one of those giant maps of Super Metroid.
Oh, nice.
And I always thought that they were cheating when you went down the elevators. But if you look at the full map of the planet, those elevators line up.
Right.
Every single one. That is a congruent space. If you map that thing out, it completely fits. It actually exists in its entirety. It's a reality. Which
Marco
is
also
kinda
found
cool to
that
think.
awesome Dark Souls
Yeah, for the PC version.
extraction, yeah.
We were kind of limiting Metroidvania to 2D, but Dark Souls, with the exception of Enter Orlando and Undead Asylum, which are kind of partitioned off, that whole game is actually spaced. Like when you're in Tomb of the Giants and you see Lost Izalith, that's actually there, which is kind of crazy just to think about. But I think one of the things we came up with when we were talking about Metroidvanias is that it isn't really a real genre, right? Like it has little elements. Because then we're like, well, is that game really a Metroidvania? Is that one? And I feel like, you can check enough check boxes to qualify.
Right.
I will also say, I think the guys who made Chair, right, who made Shadow Complex, I think they checked every single box. I think that's probably the most easiest carbon copy. And I think that's a good game, but I do think, I know we got into this discussion, it never wowed me as much. Like, I thought it was completely solid. I enjoyed playing it. I just wish it had a couple more moments that kind of jumped out at me, and the plot also was a little lackluster.
Metroidvania to me is Super Metroid, of course, and Symphony of the Night. Like, you have the ability to pick up, enemies have drops, you have an inventory, you have leveling, you have some degree of those RPG elements mixed into it.
But then the Metroid games don't have that.
Right. That's why they're considered Metroid games and not Metroidvania games.
I would completely disagree with you on that on every single ounce of every fiber of my body. The Metroid games are completely Metroidvania games.
Right, but they don't have as much
But
of the
Shadow
customization.
Complex doesn't really have drops and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm just,
So
I'm just saying. I think I know Brandon's on your side with the RPG thing. I think again that's another element that you can kind of bring in, but I still think either if you don't have those, I still think it can be a Metroidvania. I think for me it's the talking about this whole definition thing. I think Symphony of the Night and Metroid have so much in common, and they're so strong games that you can piece together anything from those and kind of throw those into a pod, and that if those fill out, then that kind of
I think
qualifies.
to me one of the things is it's being able to your abilities actually get you to new areas. Like those are the keys to unlocking spaces. So like when we talk about backtracking, it's not just you went back here to get something. It's like going back here. Now that you have a new ability, like you see that room completely different.
Totally. And backtracking is usually something you don't want in a game.
Right.
Like maybe that's actually a checkbox when backtracking's a good thing.
Right. It's all about discovery.
Yeah.
Getting these additional abilities give you, even if you don't have to go back, you still want to just to see if you can get to that ledge now that you have the double jump.
And I think, we didn't really focus on it too much, I think, in the discussion, but I think it came out maybe a bit more in the script, is also there's the aspect of secrets as well. Like, I know in a Metroid game, when you get an energy tank that's not just out in the open, like, you feel like you've earned it. That includes the 3D ones as well.
Yeah.
Castlevania, when you break those things in the wall and you see your map percentage go over 200%.
My God, Symphony of the Night was the worst. There was a breakable wall in one portion of the castle, not the inverted castle, but there was a breakable wall.
And then you hold down.
And then you hold down, and you hold down for like I think 5 to 10 seconds, and then you're like an illusionary elevator takes you down to this part of the castle you couldn't get to unless you had mist form later, so you can access these items earlier. It's insane, the amount of secrets that went into that game, and I love it. Like that's my favorite part about that game.
Yeah, one thing I thought was interesting about putting this list together though is like everyone had their almost kind of personal picks.
Oh, indeed.
Like I had played maybe 3 of the games on the list, and so like coming up with ranking was probably one of the harder things because it's like, well, all the ones that seem really great are not the ones that I played, so I don't know.
And then there's some that got kind of shut out, like I know Dust. Did Dust make it on? I don't think it
no,
did.
But I saw
and
them
Dust
playing that in false positives.
Yeah, and I know that had a bunch of supporters.
Mm-hmm.
I fought valiantly for things that barely qualified.
Yeah,
like
Outland was another one that was like
kind of on the border. Yeah,
I mean, I played a little bit of it, and it didn't strike me as well.
I know Brandon Jones brought up Alien 3, and then you kind of
crushed
became
it.
A champion of Alien Infestation.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Aliens Infestation is like a clear evolution of what Aliens 3 was. Like, it was more fleshed out, it gave more options, and there's a huge time difference between when those games were made, obviously, but I think Aliens Infestation was the clear Metroidvania of anything in that franchise.
No, it was also interesting because you think like there's a ton of games going back to the original thing. It's like what really qualifies, and it's a really interesting list. But the number one thing I discovered is it's so popular, especially with indie game developers. The list of PC games that we found, like Flash games that will never make it onto Steam, probably. I mean, that kind of juxtaposition of like a big time indie game versus like a hobbyist game. There's so many. It's awesome.
And what's weird about that is they are so influential, and yet when you look at sales on either franchise, like Metroid never sells great.
And Castlevania,
the best selling Castlevania is Lords of Shadow. That didn't even make our top 5 list, And it's like I liked the game, but it obviously when you put it up against the older Castlevanias, it's not as great.
Yeah, no, I rewatched the Castlevania Retro for this, and Brandon just keeps saying, "And the sales were worse than the game before," like continuously. It's weird. I think there's definitely a vocal, very large. I mean, everyone here likes them. I think pretty much, and it was a really interesting meeting. I think it's a pretty interesting top 10 list for sure.
Well, they're a gamer's game, and there's a degree of nostalgia that goes along with it, and it's hard to communicate those roots that I think we all have with games like that, especially in the 2D space. the side scrollers in general, and people who are playing games for the first time over the past 5 to 7 years, who are just now getting into it, it's not really approachable for them, and so I can see how it's on the decline.
Well, one thing I'm curious too, in terms of, like we always bring up tone and stuff, is with like somebody that didn't play those games back then, like would they still be creeped out by a 2D game, the same way that we were, or are they just,
I think the 2D renaissance has happened and people are okay. I think iPhone and stuff is.
Yeah, but I think people today's their definition of 2D is Angry Birds and not Castlevania.
I think Angry Birds still may have cracked open a door. I feel like 2D. Yeah. There was a time when like PS1 and PS2 was around where 2D was like a 4-letter word, and I think we're kind of over that.
Yeah.
That hump at least. Really quick though, any additional Castlevania, Metroidvanias? By the way, Metroidvania won the poll. Castleroid's got a single vote. Any single parting Castlevania, Metroidvania game you'd want to call out?
Yeah, I mean the one I had proposed made it on the list, so that was Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet, which I played last year or the year before.
I would have to say Circle of the Moon, and I think you had mentioned this, just because it was the game, it came out for the Game Boy Advance, and it was a launch title, and I have like incredibly fond memories of that game because after playing Symphony of the Night, I was like, I want more of this, and here it is on a handheld, and it was pretty incredible what that game did back in the day to move that genre forward, and it kind of got swept under the rug, so it's a great game.
Good call. And the game I liked made the list too, which is Goonies 2, which is the only Nintendo game my dad ever liked. So this one's for you, Dad. And finally, we're going to end today's show, but let you guys know, do you want to be an intern? You saw Alex here earlier. You want to be an intern at GameTrailers? If you're going to be a junior or senior and you're going to be in the LA, or more accurately, the Santa Monica area, in September, late September to mid-December, let us know and email us at GameTrailersInterns@gmail.com, and I'll get you some more information as well. Thank you for watching, and have a pleasant weekend.
See this and other GT shows and game reviews on the GT Originals iOS app, available now on the App Store.